Welcome to the Practical Growth Podcast. I'm your host, E.B. Johnson, top writer on Medium.com, published author, and master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming. You've landed on the podcast that takes you on a journey into the heart of relationships and self-discovery. This is a must listen for those who are ready to overcome their toxic relationships and their toxic patterns. You can expect real talk, practical guidance, and raw and relatable guests that you'll be talking about for weeks. Let's get into it. And hello again. Welcome to season 2 of the Practical Growth Podcast. I'm so excited to be back with you guys. It's been a short little break, much needed. And I'm really happy to welcome you all back to what is going to be a very different and very exciting season. Today, we're going to be starting off with a really fun topic, and this is one I've been talking about a lot on Medium.com. So if you follow me there, you've probably seen a bit of this, but today we're going to be talking about relationship manipulations, these manipulative partners who just kind of squeeze and sink their ways into the corners of our lives. And then before we know it, we are standing next to a stranger and sometimes a monster that we don't even recognize. That's not to say that they hit you or necessarily inflict exact terror, but the strings are there and they're always being pulled. Relationship manipulation is extremely subtle. It's extremely subtle, and it's often a slow slide into the chaos. And we're going to be talking about that today through 5 different stories. And these stories are from some of my favorite clients and some of my favorite readers. And oh my gosh, these are just... some of them are shocking. Some of them are heartbreaking. In all cases, they display the true depth of manipulative relationships and how they can turn our lives upside down. Just before we jump in, though, I would be totally remiss if I did not let you know about an exciting new event that's coming up this Saturday. It's a part of a new series I'm doing called the Recovery Lab. And this is a monthly workshop, which is totally free, accessible to everyone. And it focuses on relationship issues, human behaviors, recovering from toxic families, all the juicy goodness that you've come to know and love from me, and practical growth. The first part of this series is going to happen this Saturday, March 26th, and we're going to be focusing specifically on how we build these toxic relationships in our lives. How do those baselines form that allow us to take in these toxic partners and turn our lives upside down through these really chaotic relationships? If you want to sign up for that, it's totally free. All you have to do is head over to eb-johnson.com and you will see some info right there at the top about Recovery Lab. Click on that, follow the links, and you'll be able to sign up for free. Hurry though, spots are limited. It's filling up very fast because I'm going to be giving away more than $2,000 worth of prizes, exclusives, all types of good stuff. So you're not going to want to miss this. Go and sign up for the Recovery Lab at eb-johnson.com. Let's get into it. Let's jump right into this. Toxic manipulative relationships. We're looking at this kind of covert string pulling in the background, how our partners trick us mentally or emotionally into changing our behaviors or doing the things that they want to do, or kind of isolating ourselves and trapping ourselves so that they can further advance their abuses. And we're going to do things a little bit differently today. At the end of the show, I will talk to you about some manipulative behaviors specifically that you need to look out for. And these are really subtle behaviors. But the main focus of the show today is going to be stories sent in from some of my favorite clients and some of my favorite readers. And these stories are going to kind of help you see in real life how these manipulative behaviors in our relationships build up and play out. And then you're also going to see how and why these readers allowed this to happen, why they let these toxic people into their lives, even though they were, generally awake. Maybe they had had therapy. And then we're also going to explore how they were able to escape those relationships, how they were able to build something new for themselves, or kind of come to the realization that the person they were with is not who they thought they were. Now, I do just want to say before we read these stories that the names and some of the ages have obviously been changed just to protect anonymity. We don't want to expose anyone unduly. First, we have a story from Sarah, who's 36, and this one is a story called Small Town Affair, and it's pretty typical of one. You probably know someone who's experienced one of these relationships, or you've been through one of these relationships yourself, and it really demonstrates the build-up, the slide, and the insanity that can kind of ensue from these manipulative relationships. My manipulative partner was my childhood best friend and my neighbor growing up in a small town. We became high school sweethearts our senior year and went on to get married and start a family a few years later. All along, I knew something was off but couldn't quite put my finger on it. That's because my partner never hit me. He didn't even really raise his voice to me. Instead, it was always quiet, passive-aggressive. When I gained weight after our second child, he bought me a Christmas voucher for a personal trainer and later an elliptical for my birthday. After having severe complications with my third child, I was bedridden for weeks. Once I had my life back, I was shattered to learn that my partner had been having an affair with a local woman I knew well. When I confronted him about it, he was so calm and so penitent that I relented. Not just that, but I allowed him to talk me into an open agreement with the woman. He declared his love for me, but made a very strong argument for his needs. He told me how men were wired differently and how sex meant different things to them. This went on for years, and it wasn't until I found out that she was also pregnant that it all changed for me. I realized then what a fool I had been and how much I had been played. After ending the relationship and moving out with my children, I found out that the affairs had gone on far longer and far worse than I had ever known. Now I see that I was stupid. I allowed someone to convince me that their love for me was greater than their bad behavior, but I now know to listen to my intuition and to never settle for someone's lies over my own happiness. Wow, so not only is that an incredibly brave story to tell, but it's also a sadly common one. You see this all the time, in which we get so deeply invested in love in these relationships that love is then weaponized against us. And we spend a lot of time talking about these like overtly abusive relationships, right? Where people threaten to harm you, or they do harm you, or they harm your children so that you can't escape. But then you have relationships like this, and they can turn you inside out into a person you don't even recognize, all by just slowly pecking away at that sense of love and your self-esteem so that you are then willing to give in to any crazy request. Next, we have a really sad story from Bridget, who's 72, and this one is called Who Else? One of the earliest phrases I can remember from my childhood is, "Who do you think will love you like that?" Not only was it a favorite phrase of my mother's, it was one that my ex liked to use against me a lot too. I believed it for a long time. I didn't think I was pretty enough or smart enough or talented enough. So by the time my ex found me a few months after college graduation and an epic breakup, I was ripe for the picking. I was totally down on myself and fell right into his lap. He was pretty manipulative from the start. He gradually isolated me from my friends by convincing me they all hated me or they were all talking badly about me. And he did the same thing with my family by creating a ton of fights that ensured we weren't invited around anymore. Anytime I tried to stand up for myself, I gotta go ahead and leave. Who else do you think is going to put up with someone like you? You don't even have your own money, your own friends. Go, you'll end up on the street where you belong. Sadly, I never did get up the courage to leave him. I believed him until the day he died. It wasn't until I got this freedom, and the freedom of my mother's death too, that I was able to start healing and see the patterns. No, the monster under my bed had never hit me, but he had whispered poison in my ear. Poison which seeped right into the wounds that had already been placed in my childhood heart. And that poison had been enough to ruin my life. I had denied myself everything that would give me happiness, but now I have the choice to rebuild for myself, and that's something that I'm very proud of. Sadly, this is the case in a lot of manipulative relationships. You know, you don't recognize it until there is a major break, a major tragedy, and you're on the other side of that relationship and able to see what healthy looks and feels like compared to the manipulative mess you were stuck in. I bet a lot of you are going to relate to this next story, and this, Trisha is fantastic. Trisha, if you're listening, hello. Trisha is one of my clients, and she has made incredible strides with me. She's been working with me now for several months, and this is her story, which is called Total Lockdown. We'll be right back after this quick break.
When you're alone in your house, but you'd like to feel like you're not, the podcast inside your house can keep you company. Our show will make sure that you run up the stairs at night when you turn off the lights and check under your bed before you sleep. We'll bring you every kind of horror, from the classics like Lovecraft and Poe to the strange and often silly world of no sleep and creepypastas. We've even got stories written just for the show that you won't hear anywhere else. So go and check out the podcast inside your house. We're on all major platforms, as well as inside your pantry, deep in your crawl space, and sitting at the foot of your bed at night, watching you sleep.
What didn't my partner do to manipulate me? He would call me names, make fun of my weight, anything I liked. You could bet he was going to call it stupid or senseless or a waste of time. If I spent money on hobbies, myself, or something that only benefited me, all hell would break loose. Walking on eggshells is an understatement. I spent every day and night squeezing myself into whatever mold he had set up for me that day. My life felt like a prison, and he was the warden. I had to walk like he wanted me to walk, dress like he wanted me to dress, talk like he wanted me to talk. And he didn't have to hit me to get that. He just had to act like he was disappointed in me, like he was disgusted with me, and I would do anything I could do to get that sense of affection pointed squarely back to me. When I did start to speak up for myself, the manipulation got even more emotional. He would badger me to the point of tears and make me feel like no one would ever love me if I even so much as thought about leaving him. He would threaten my kids, my family, and paint a picture of hell for me that would exist if I decided to change his life. Of course, the whole time, he was living like a hypocrite. Everything was a double standard. He was allowed to talk to me however he wanted. He could do whatever he wanted with whoever he wanted, whenever he wanted. But the same did not apply for me. Even now, 10 years after the nastiest divorce imaginable, he still makes my life a living hell through the kids and does what he can to emotionally control me through them. But I hold strong to the knowledge that this hell is nothing compared to the hell of being fully controlled by him in his home. Yeah, sadly, a lot of these emotionally abusive relationships, not only does it take the end of the relationship to see it, but often even after the relationship ends, unless it's severed by death, the emotional abuse can continue, especially if you're still linked through children and you can't entirely sever your lives from them. And this is why we have to focus. Yes, we need to be aware of physical abuse and sexual abuse and all of those other forms of abuse, but this emotional and mental manipulation, it's so damaging, so severe, so long-lasting with major consequences for your life. Now, the next story is short and sweet, and it has more of a happy ending than some of the other ones. This one is from Phyllis, and it's called Chase, Chase, Chase. I didn't realize I was being manipulated in my last relationship because I was the one doing all the chasing. My partner was a covert narcissist, and he used victimhood to push me over the edge again and again. Anytime there was a fight or I complained about something he did, he would withdraw completely. Sometimes he would treat me like I didn't even exist. When he did speak to me again, it was always with a focus on his hurt. Sometimes he would even cry. He would turn me into a total villain and have me feeling so bad. I would have to chase him to get him to come back around like a loving partner again. I think eventually we both just got tired of the groveling and the games. I started to resent the crying man behind the bedroom door, and he resented the screaming harpy that kept getting pushed. We broke up after a really embarrassing fight at family Christmas when I refused to chase him out into 3 feet of snow to fight in the street like some bad Lifetime movie. I don't think Phyllis would be alone in experiencing one of these really over-the-top and dramatic relationships, and that is one of the kind of trademarks of these emotionally manipulative relationships, right? Emotional drama, big drama, getting you to chase into the snow or whatever else, starting family fights. That's all a way to get you into that chase mode, right? And that's powerful. That then gives the victim power because wherever they go, you're going to follow them. And when you follow them, you're then going to be more likely to give in or change your behavior or ask them what they want from you. And last but not least, this story comes from one of my few but fair male clients. And we have changed a lot of names here to protect anonymity. But this is a fascinating story. And it's a bit longer than the other ones. But the reason I really wanted to share this story, and I'm so grateful to Andy for allowing me to share this story. The reason I want to share this story is because it highlights female covert narcissism. And if you've been around my podcast, you've been around my TikToks, you've been around my Medium blogs, my pages, my books, then you know that I'm very passionate about speaking up about these covert female narcissists, because this is what my mother was. And she was extremely damaging and abusive to her children. And it was so well crafted that I don't know that my siblings even understand still that it happened to them. And to anyone looking on the outside, it's very hard for them to see until they get an intimate breakdown. Female covert narcissists are so hard to spot because they rely on a lot of social subterfuge, but they also really, really lean into a sense of victimhood, which just casts everyone automatically in the role of being guilty, right? So they always have to chase this person and do whatever this person wants to comfort them and make their lives as comfortable as possible. So Andy, thank you for letting me share this story. And to everyone listening, pay close attention because you absolutely know someone who's been in a relationship like this. I met my now ex-partner on the set of a film we were both working on. A lot of the scenes were being filmed in a really remote part of the country, and that meant that we were stranded in the middle of nowhere for months. It was beautiful there, but isolated, with big picturesque mountains and lots of snow. When we weren't busy on set, most of the crew spent our time off in the only bar, pounding beers and giving ourselves play-by-plays of the day. If we couldn't get in there, then we were packed into each other's trailers or chain smoking on the side of the ramshackle buildings that had been transformed to house a lot of the production team. I tell you all this to set the scene of how my partner and I met, and how I probably missed the signs of the manipulation that was soon to become my life. We worked in different departments, but constantly crossed paths. After a few weeks, we were noticing each other more and more, and by the second month of filming, we were romantically involved. Everyone noticed immediately. They told us that we had a spark, and I admit that I thought we did too. She was everything I had been looking for. She was smart and strong. She had great taste in music and seemed different than a lot of the other crew you find lurking around on the set of big productions. She was refreshing, and I think I refreshed her too. But there's no denying the obvious spell that was cast on us. Looking back now, the isolation we were in, I realized it was a Stockholm syndrome of sorts. After production wrapped, we kept things going. We got back to LA and dated seriously. Within a few months, we were living together. It all happened so fast that I didn't even see the obvious slips that were happening. The changes that took place every time I got a little closer to what she actually wanted from me. When our daughter was born a year later, the bottom fell out of our relationship entirely. The woman I loved disappeared. In her place was a different person, determined to form everyone around her into the shape of a life she most envisioned for herself. My relationship with the outside world became severed. We became chained to the house and our relationship in a way that was diabolical and unhealthy. Everything was a confrontation. I couldn't work, I couldn't leave the house to shop, I couldn't do anything without epic explosions of emotion. Eventually, the relationship came to a boiling point, and we called things off shortly after my daughter's second birthday. Breaking it all down after with my friends, my therapists, it became so clear that it broke my heart. My partner was a covert narcissist. All along, I had been playing little more than a role in her life, helping to ensure that she got everything she wanted and projected the image that she needed to complete the delusion she lived in. Both my daughter and myself were pawns, accessories, no different than a Birkin bag or a new Mercedes. We helped her paint a pretty picture, and if we deviated from that picture, there was always hell to pay. I see now that the charming girl in the hills was mirroring, playing a dangerous game and pretending to be the woman she knew I had dreamed of all my life. But that's not who she was. And what's worse, she never knew who I was. We were two strangers in passing, and everyone ended up the worse for it. This is such a sad story, and it's such a complicated story, and there are so many nuances to this. But you can see this again and again and again, and this is very much something that happened with my own mother. When it comes to a narcissist, they will eagerly force relationships. They will mirror whatever they think you want. They will idealize themselves and you extremely fast. And that's because they see relationships, yes, as an accessory, but also as a milestone projection that has to be reached in order for them to be seen and accepted by society as normal. Because on the inside, a narcissist does not feel normal. They feel like an outcast. They feel worthless. They're highly, incredibly insecure. So they have to work constantly to hide those insecurities from the world. And for the female narcissist, part of this is creating the family, because women in today's society are still very much to project that image. And part of having it all, if you want to be a super successful woman in any field, is like, yeah, get to the top of your career. But then they also expect you to have children and have the husband who plays golf on the weekends and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of these things are just a part of narcissism. But it's so subtle. The slide is so slow, and the manipulations just creep in to the very edges, and you just can't even really perceive what's happening because you think, oh, well, something's not right, but relationships aren't always good, right? There's ups and downs, so this just must be a down. But what you don't realize is you're like a fly wiggling further and further into the web. So what can we take from these stories? What is the real message here? Well, there's a lot. First of all, emotional manipulation, these relationship manipulations, they happen in so many different ways, and it can be hard to realize that you're standing in quicksand. But there are 6 kinds of early behaviors, early warning signs that you can look out for. So before we head out from this opening episode, which I hope you've loved, I want to break down 6 really subtle relationship manipulations that you've probably not been paying attention to, but you need to wake up, because if you spot these in your partnership, then you need to take a step back and reassess, because there may be some serious manipulation going on. First, look out for emotional integrity. Does your relationship have emotional integrity? Does your partner have emotional integrity? And emotional integrity is this. It is both safety and honesty in a relationship, meaning that when you feel something, you can speak up and you can share the way you feel with your partner, and your partner also feels safe to do the same. There's no worrying about, oh, I've got to say this at exactly the right time, or he's going to be angry, or he'll do this, or he'll do that. If you at any point in your partnership feel scared, feel uncomfortable to talk about something, anything, there is a lack of emotional integrity happening somewhere in there. If you can't tell your partner that you feel wrong, that something feels wrong, that you're angry, that you're sad, your relationship lacks emotional integrity. And this is a sign of emotional manipulation, because what's basically happened is the other person has created this groundwork that makes you feel unsafe sharing. So what you do is you shut down and you stop sharing, which is what they want you to do, because that is more convenient for them. Just bury things under the rug. Let's keep going. That is a lack of emotional integrity. Number 2, love bombing. Love bombing is always a red flag. Yeah, we all get excited at the start of our relationships, but we don't all overwhelm someone with grand gestures. We don't say, I love you on the second date. We don't propose marriage in the first 24 hours. We don't call someone our soulmate within the first week. That's extreme. And when you see someone attaching to you this quickly, this extreme, you need to watch out, because this can be an early warning sign of this idealization, which happens in toxic relationships, which happens in narcissistic relationships. That other person wants to glom on fast and hard. They want that passion. They want to make you seem perfect. They want to seem perfect, and they want that relationship to seem perfect. And they make it happen really, really fast, push it through until you're stuck. And then you get to see the other side of the coin. So look out for love bombing. But more importantly, look out for love bombing with your family. Pay special attention to the partner who attaches themselves instantly to your family, who wheedles in after only a short time of knowing them, and who says things like, oh, your mom's my best friend. These are things to look out for, because in many cases, this is how a partner will manipulate you, by entrenching themselves in your family and then using or turning family members against you. Number 3, we saw this in a couple of the stories that we shared today. Stonewalling. Stonewalling, the silent treatment, when your partner just totally shuts down their emotions, withdraws affection. Highly manipulative tactic that's used to create that chase dynamic. So the partner, you do something wrong, you do something they don't like, or maybe you confront them about something they've done wrong. And instead of fighting with you, they just shut down. They stop talking to you completely. They turn their back on you, and it fills you with dread. It fills you with fear. It fills you with insecurity. This is in order to make you behave differently. It's in order to get you to drop your questions, your problems, your concerns, your issues. It's almost a form of gaslight, which is number 4, gaslighting. Please, 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 please stop ignoring gaslighting. I see this again and again and again from my clients who will come to me, talk about a big fight in which they had a valid concern with their partner, but when they brought it to their partner then said, well, I acted that way because do you remember that one time we went on that trip and you said that thing? That's gaslighting. Gaslighting is all about shifting accountability and making sure that your partner doesn't have to take the hit for whatever they did or said wrong. It's very manipulative because, again, it puts you on that back foot. It puts you in that place of being powerless and being told you're actually the perpetrator here, not me, and you're going to take all the accountability for things that go wrong in this relationship. Number 5, you also have to pay a special attention to coercive conflict and emotional badgering. This is one that gets overlooked like every day, and people don't even realize it's happening. It's a favorite tactic of narcissists. So if you think that you have a narcissistic partner, or if you think you had someone who was very narcissistic in the past, I want you to think back to their behaviors and see if this fits. So coercive conflict is fighting with you until you give in, like absolutely just hammering the argument, refusing to let you out. For my mom, it was cornering us in the car. She would get us in the car and then go drive around in back roads and just hammer us with like rhetorical questions and one-sided accusations and all kinds of things. Does your partner use coercive conflict until you just break down? What about just straight up badgering? They just pester and pester and pester and pester until you're so beaten down and tired of talking about it that you'll just do whatever they want. Yeah, that's manipulation. They don't have to hit you. They just have to wear down your emotional and mental defenses. Last but not least, what about demeaning humor? Does your partner use a lot of really mean jokes that make you feel bad about your body or your intelligence or your lifestyle or your interests? Yeah, that's manipulation. Mean jokes that make you feel bad are not funny. Doesn't matter what the other person thinks about it. And that's especially true if those mean jokes make you change the way you feel about yourself, or they put you in a negative emotional space. And make no mistake, we read a story about this earlier. Demeaning humor is commonly used by partners to wear down self-esteem. And once you don't have self-esteem, you are easier to push around, to coerce, to control. So pay attention to mean-spirited and nasty humor that's only funny to the person pointing the joke. So what do you think? Have you seen a lot of these behaviors play out in your relationships? If you're someone like me who's been through a couple of pretty brutal partnerships, then you've definitely seen these. I mean, the mean-spirited humor and the emotional badgering, all of that was a part of my day-to-day life and childhood. Like, I can't even count the number of times my appearance was made fun of, my body was made fun of, my talents were made fun of. These are all, all of these things, these subtle manipulations, they build up over time and they really change your personality and they change the way you see the world around you. And that can limit your opportunities. It changes your relationships. It changes the literal outcome of your life. It's no small thing. So we cannot ignore these manipulative relationships. They're not small change. In many cases, these kinds of manipulations linger on far past some of the damage we experience when we are physically abused. So it's very important to be aware of the patterns, be aware of who you're surrounding yourself with. And at the same time, once you spot these patterns, it's important to act. And it's important to act from a place of knowing that you deserve so much better than what you're getting. I hope that this episode has been helpful. I hope that it's been enlightening. If you have enjoyed this snazzy new first episode of season 2, then you better subscribe to this podcast, follow me on Medium, follow me on TikTok, because we have so much juicy goodness coming this season, including some guests that I am so excited to share with you. You are not going to believe who you're going to be talking to on the podcast this season. So make sure you hit follow. If you enjoyed this episode, then why not think about leaving a quick 5-star review on Apple Podcasts? Yes, if you leave a 5-star review, I'll send you a free ebook. You can pick any one of my free ebooks out of my shop from therealebjohnson.com. All you've got to do is head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review of the show, take a screenshot of that once it goes live. then just email that to me, or you can send it to me on Instagram and I will send you a free ebook. That's all you've got to do. And who doesn't love free, right? Especially in this brand new economy that we're all dealing with. As usual, if you're interested in working with me, or you want to find out more about me or my books or my articles, then all you have to do is head over to therealebjohnson.com. You can apply for one of my 8-week coaching programs, or you can even sign up for one of my 4-week email programs. It's all up to you. And it's all about making sure that you have the tools that you need to build a better life for yourself, because we are done with this gatekeeping. It's all about you in this moment and getting your life together. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you've gotten some goodness that you can take away with you. Until next time, keep moving forward. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.